Hey everyone, welcome back to another LEGO video. Today we're going to be taking a look at another custom set. This one's based off of Lloyd's Jungle Chopper bike, which is an upcoming Season 14 Ninjago set releasing March 1st. As with all custom sets that I do, this of course isn't the official set, this is just my take on it. This is reverse engineered from the set pictures and the promotional stuff that we've gotten so far. Of course, if you guys do enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and like the video if you guys do enjoy it. And of course, follow me on Instagram if you want behind the scenes stuff. But with that all being said, let's get right into it. So getting right into things, the first thing to say here is, yeah, it's another bike set. LEGO does a lot of these, as I've said in the past. It's not technically a double bike set, but it still falls under pretty much the same category of oversized, like, bikes. And this one's really no exception in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of really interesting things that I'll go through with this set. So starting up at the front of the bike, you can see these spikes on the front wheel, which definitely gives it a bit more of an off-road look, which I think is what this overall design is kind of going for. You can also obviously see there's a lot of Technic being used here just to connect the front wheel, which does make sense from a structural standpoint. While I don't have a lot to comment on with the parts usage up in the front here, I think one notable thing is the way these sort of flag pieces in sand green are attached. Interestingly enough, they are used with some clip pieces and a bar piece, and the way that kind of all shapes the front is actually pretty interesting, and it's something that I don't think LEGO's really done too prevalently in the past. As you might expect with these oversized Ninjago bikes, you can see we have space for one minifigure, in this case being Lloyd. There's really not a whole lot to comment on here, although you can see there is some interesting kind of parts usage here for the sort of cage that goes over the cockpit. So I guess that looks interesting, and of course, as you'd expect, you can lift that up. Moving back from that, you can see some very similar parts usage to what the actual set uses. I didn't really want to change anything at this point, because I think it actually looks pretty good and it makes sense for the design. On the sides here, you can see that I've actually used the pieces from the Green Ninja Mech Dragon from the Ninjago movie, which are also in sand green, of course, to sort of create a bit more of the detail that we see on the actual set here. The stickers actually match pretty similarly. This sort of triangle design works pretty well in comparison to what is on the actual set. You can also see we have these gold exhaust pieces, which I think just add a bit more shaping to the overall bike and really make it look a bit more interesting. Moving back though, the second half of this bike is definitely a lot more interesting and a lot more complicated in some ways than the simplistic design of the first half. And the two things that I guess I'll talk about is sort of the design of the back wheel and of course this sort of sail thing on the back and how I kind of interpreted that, as well as the sort of flyer that comes off of this bike. So I guess the first thing to comment on is the back wheel. As you can see, it's not actually parallel with the ground, rather it's kind of angled downwards. This specific design cue really mirrors the sort of aesthetic that we see with the off-road vehicles, and I think this works very well because of course this is on the actual set and you can see it's here as well. Interestingly enough, LEGO did take a bit of a different approach to designing this. As you would expect, they used these rubber sort of link pieces. I don't know exactly what they're called, but they're rubber pieces that are usually used for suspension, and that's sort of the idea here. So on the official set, there is a sort of suspension mechanism so that you can, of course, get the sort of off-road feel that you would expect from an off-road vehicle. In my case, though, I wanted to experiment with some different LEGO elements to see if I could achieve a similar effect, and while it doesn't really have the full sort of suspension effect, I did get the angle right, and I think this is actually a really cool parts usage that I don't think is really used traditionally in this way. This is sort of normally an ornament piece, usually used to sort of emphasize and make things look nice, rather than a structural piece, which is what it's really being used for here. This, of course, is just a slope piece with a slight lip on it, and the angle of this lip happens to correspond really nicely with the angle that I wanted the wheel to basically angle downwards at, so this worked out really well, and you can essentially see how it's sort of locked in place there, and it just works very well in my opinion. Moving up from that, you can of course see the sail thing, and this is sort of a flyer that can come off of the bike, just like in the actual set. Obviously, the actual sail element that comes in the set, it doesn't exist yet, it's not something that's available. And while there are some alternatives, I didn't really like any of the options because they all just seemed a bit oversized, so things like the Destiny's Bounty sails just don't really work proportionally here, so I just decided not to use them and rather opted for a brick-built approach. As you can see, I've just used these flag pieces in place of the actual cloth sail, and I think it's actually a pretty good option considering the sail pieces just aren't really applicable here. Another subtle design technique with this sort of sail build is the Technic lift arm in the back here that sort of just kind of limits how far the flag can actually move forward, which is pretty nice so it doesn't kind of break itself. But the other thing that's nice is you can still move it backwards, so if you want to put a minifigure on it, you of course can. And as I said earlier, of course, you can take off the actual flyer thing, and you essentially get two vehicles. You get a bike that's left behind, and honestly, I still think it looks really good, even without the sort of sail thing on it, and a flyer thing that looks pretty decent considering its size. So yeah, that was a bit of a closer look at some of the techniques and design things I went through to sort of design this custom set based off of Lloyd's Jungle Chopper bike. Of course, as with all custom sets, I do also have some minifigures that I've designed, so we'll get into those right now. So first up, we have the Season 14 variant of Lloyd, and he looks pretty interesting this time around, I think. This, of course, has the Hands of Time torso, which I think works pretty well to mirror the kind of design that his Season 14 outfit has. The legs are actually the Master of the Mountain legs for Lloyd, and also the face is the Avatar face from Prime Empire, because it sort of has the extra detail on there to sort of mirror the like line things that he has for his Season 14 appearance. Next up, we have Nia, who is supposedly the pilot for the sort of sail thing, the sail glider thing that comes off of the bike. This figure is pretty basic, pretty much just using the Season 11 torso and legs, one of those blue masks from Rebooted, and just a pretty basic Nia figure overall. Last up, we have one of the villains for this upcoming season, and I have no idea what these are called, to be completely honest. There's some sort of like Islander characters, and of course for weapons and accessories they have a shield and a spear, which is the same sort of stuff that they have in the actual set. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up this custom set of Lloyd's Jungle Chopper bike. Quite a long name for a very small set. I still don't know if it tops the last custom set that I did, which if you want to go check out, I'll leave a card in the corner so you can go look at that. That was the Titan mech from Legacy. And yeah, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this custom set. Who knows what I'll be doing next, to be honest. As far as custom sets, I don't know if I can really expect anything until the summer sets start coming out. So who knows? This might be the last custom set. I don't think I'll be doing any more for this Season 14 release wave. There are only 4 sets, but yeah, nonetheless, I will be doing more mocks and stuff, so stay tuned for that. And I'll see you guys all in the next video. Goodbye.